Hey everyone, this is Jake, and today we are going to be talking about all the gears within Counterside. This video is going to be pretty long and it's going to be divided into the 3 parts. First part of the video will definitely talk about all the counters gears, and the second video will talk about soldiers, and for the third video we'll talk about mechanic gears. The reason I'm making this video now is because the C server got exactly the same amount of gear as a Korean server does when it comes to T6 gears. So I think this might be a very good time for you to really sit down and think about what you really want to spend within your T6 gears. I talk about a lot of things like this within the stream as well, because a lot of people ask the same question again, and this video should be the video that should be able to answer a lot of questions you have when it comes to all this T6 gears and where you want to invest your set binary into. So let's jump into video and we'll talk about all the gears within Counterside and what you can expect from these gears. So in this first part of the video, we're definitely going to be talking about maze gear first. Maze gear is very good set. Each parts are very important for your DPS units because they give you anti-ground damage. So that's minus the case, but we'll talk about the case separately. But the weapons and the crowns are definitely go-to-go pieces for your DPS units. So when it comes to maze gear, the cooldown set is definitely the best one that you want to have. So if you're, let's say, rolling for set binary for these gears and you look at all these different set options you have available, you definitely want to go for skill cooldown. So always remember, if you get a cooldown set with the maze gears, it's definitely something that you want to keep because that's going to be the top priority right now, at least within the meta we have within Counterside, that for at least a year and a half within Korean server and the C server right now. Now the watch case is a little bit different than other maze parts because it comes with defensive options. Now don't get me wrong, substats when you roll for skill haste, this gives a 10%, and the 14% anti-ground damage resistant is very good options and giving a bit of survivability for your DPS units and whatnot. So it's still really good to have a cooldown set for the maze case, but a lot of cases that you probably want to change this to something else. Something else mean, let's say if you want to have something defensive options, then you probably want to go for HP set or even defense sets. But the HP set is generally a really good option. So as you can see, I have 3 HP sets and 1 evasions. This one I can probably change to cooldown. 3 maze cases definitely should be enough, and maybe 1 attack speed and 1 cooldown options, or even more cooldown options, you can definitely go for it. So if you're rolling in the maze case with the set binary, if you get HP set option, definitely that's tier 1 option as well, and maybe defense and evasion is a little bit lower in terms of that, and cooldown set will be definitely a pretty good part as well. Those 2 options will be probably the best thing for the maze case. Now let's talk about maze gear once again, but with the attack speed setting. Attack speed maze set is definitely not a bad option either. With the characters that has very good basic attacks, attack speed maze set could definitely be very useful and able to do a lot of damage still. Now don't get me wrong, those characters with the strong basic attack could definitely still take a huge benefit from the cooldown sets because usually they're going to have a very decent skill as well. I think it's pretty decent to have at least 1 attack speed set. For example, Sobin can take a huge benefit from these amazing attack speed set. You can roll with the anti-ground damage along with the skill haste or the crit damage. So consider all those options, and the maze crown and the maze hands with the attack speed option is really good. Now case wise, if you are a character that's able to do a decent amount of damage, like I said, with the basic attack, you probably want to go with the raid case because it gives a bit of crit damage instead of defensive options, and you should be able to get a decent result with your doing a little bit of extra damage this way. And the third option for maze gear definitely could be a crit damage. Now there is not a lot of characters that could use a crit damage set. Shouting is definitely one of the very few that are able to take a benefit of it. So if there's a more character like a Shouting within the future where it's able to guarantee crit hits, definitely maze crit set could be definitely a pretty good option to have. The problem is the case, you definitely want to go with the raid one because it's able to give extra crit damage with the main option, unlike the case for the maze, which gives anti-ground damage, which is not really useful for Shouting at all. but the crown should be able to give ground damage as well as a crit damage for the substat options. Same goes for the weapon. So with this setup, my Xiao is definitely going to be having huge crit damage. Basically, it's 154 crit damage along with the 41% attack speed coming from just the counter case weapon alone, and able to get some ground damage. It's nice to have a balanced out. If you don't, then you might be just stacking all the crit damage, and sometimes it does not crit, then you can have a huge damage fall up. Barrier is a set option. I'll definitely put it in tier 2. Not something that you want to keep, in my opinion, if you don't plan to use Xiao or already have, let's say, like a raid gear set available within Xiao. Like I said, Xiao is not really a meta character, and the raid, let's say if you have a T6 gears, the full raid set, that should be more than enough. I don't think you really need extra for the PvE usage. And if you roll attack speed within a set gear, then you can just use the attack speed mace gears, which is going to be more beneficial and useful for the character. So we talked everything about mace gear here. Like I said, attack speed set is definitely not a bad option. Tier maybe 1.5, and the crit damage, definitely not a bad option, but probably more a tier 2. Definitely tier 1 option is gonna be the cooldown set. This is basically what you want to go for with your set binary, and this is the first gear you want to go for set binary. Reason being is because these gears you can use it on any characters. So if you roll for, let's say, Gaeun's counter case weapon, which is incredibly good gear, definitely remember when you roll for this, you can only use this weapon within Gaeun. Now, like I said, Gaeun is very good character, pretty much a meta character that you can use both in PvE and PvP. But if you roll this weapon could be only used within Gaeun. If you roll for mace gear, you can definitely use that mace gear on any other character available here right now. So when it comes to set binary and you don't have a lot of it, you definitely want to roll for mace gear first, then consider counter case gears after, depending on how often you use the characters. I will definitely make a separate video in the future about the counter cases weapons. I will mention some counter case weapon in this video as well, like a Gaeun's counter case weapon, which is really good top tier level gear that you can definitely invest set partner into and you won't regret. But there are some minor changes coming to counter case gears and how to acquire them probably in the future for the Korean server. That's why I'm still leaving counter case weapons into a different video, and check out that video in the future to see more about the counter case gears. So long story short, roll for mace gear, and if you get cooldown set, definitely something that you want to keep around. If you get, let's say for the watch case, if you get health options, definitely very good option that you can have. So definitely keep those. But like I said, cooldown set, mace case is still amazing options, so keep those as well. But that is pretty much it about the mace gear, which comes to the first tier gears that you want to roll set binary on. Now let's talk about Cordias gears. Now these gears are definitely another tier 1 level kind of gears that you want to focus on within your set binary. There are a couple characters that's a defensive units within counter side, and these gears are definitely going to be a huge deal when it comes to your defender units or some character that are able to tank your hits. So these gears, depending on what you use, if you have the crown, it's going to give you close range damage resistance as the main stat, and if you have the movement, which comes with the evasion stat as main stats, it's going to come with range damage resistance, which is very big thing as well. Now these two sets are definitely best set you can definitely go for all your defensive units, because like I said, it gives damage resistance like close damage or range damage. And for the substat options, you can come with either, like I said, crit damage resistance, or it can come with the ground damage resistance, which is pretty crucial thing that you can add on. So if you stack these up really nicely, you can get a huge damage resistance going on. This is probably the basic setup that you want to go for when it comes to your defensive option for your defender units. And like I said, you can see I'm getting a lot of defensive options and my stats are looking pretty decent here. Now, what will be tier 1 option that you can definitely have within this gears? Definitely I will say HP. HP is definitely where you can something go, but even if you get defense and you don't have a lot of set binaries around, you can definitely kind of keep it around and it should be pretty decent for you to use as well. So this gear is more simple. You can get defense or HP sets. It's definitely something that you want to keep, or even evasion sets. Now, here's the thing though, there are some characters within counter side that should be able to take very good benefits from the crown, which is definitely this one, along with some skill cooldown. This is another kind of maze and a Cordias hybrid crown skill cooldown set I have, and some character could definitely take a huge benefit from this. They're getting some decent amount of close range damage resistance while able to roll 11% skill haste for the subset options. So while keeping 72% skill cooldown ratio with the setup, I'm getting some beat up the close damage resistance and some extra benefit out of it. Niall definitely could take a huge benefit from this, because even though she has invincibility with her skills tap for a couple seconds, when that turns off and maybe you need beat up extra damage resistance for her to survive for a little bit longer, this definitely helps her able to survive a bit longer and able to pull out some, you know, hero moments where she wipes out entire enemies because she's able to trigger her invincibility again. So definitely, if you get the cooldown sets, it's something that you can definitely stop. So always remember, if you get a cooldown set with on any of these Gorgeous gears or Maze gears or any other gears, definitely stop right there and consider what I really need after that. You know, if you get cooldown gears, just stop there. Don't keep going. And unless you're made out of money, you definitely want to stop. Trust me, they will give you more of these gears in the future. So you probably want to stop right here and just wait until you get more Maze Crown or Gorgeous Crown and wait for it to roll HP on there. So that is pretty much about the Gorgeous gears, and the last thing we're going to talk about, we'll go back to Defender here, and it's the Hummingbird series. And the Hummingbird series, like I said, is another crucial piece for your defensive units. It comes with a lot of different substat options. You can change this to close damage resistance or damage resistance 4%, or as you can see here, I have the range damage resistance, which is 11.2. And for the substat, you can roll through another additional crit damage resistance and stuff like that. But the extra thing I added on is the skill cooldown, because I think defensive option I have it up here. I just maybe have a one to a little bit more cooldown times to trigger skills a little bit faster. I usually use this gear for the King or the Naiyubin. So definitely a pretty good gear for me to have if I want to use this. Now, if you get a cooldown set with this, definitely keep it just like the crown I talked about. But definitely HP or defensive set is definitely you want to have. You usually want to have a 2 gears for Hummingbird as well as a Maze case and the Cordias sets. You want to have a 2 sets because there's a lot of cases where you are going to be rolling 2 defender. So having 2 defensive full sets, that's a 2 defensive options, is definitely going to be very useful for you within the future of counter set. So as you can see, these are 2 kind of defensive set options I use: Hummingbird and Maze case, and Cordias and Maze case weapon with the HP and Maze case HP, and the crown and the movement. So these are 2 defensive options I always use and definitely use on my defender. These 2 are definitely more than enough, and I use this a lot. Definitely good option. So let's go over the thing first. Definitely going to, for this defensive gear, HP sets, defense sets, or evasions, whatever you want to have. But HP set definitely the #1 set option that you want to have for Hummingbird and all these defensive gears that you can buy from the PvP and the Danger Close shops. If you get cooldown, definitely keep it. Attack speed, keep it if you want to really have a good Chihuyu going on. But if you don't want that, then you can probably change to something else. So those are 2 main gears that you want to spend set binary on. This is definitely the tier 2 option that you can really go for if you are rolling for set binary. After you roll a certain amount of maze gears, you definitely want to switch up to Hummingbird as well as the Crown series and spend on those, and that should be still pretty safe investments to have. Now, there's many different T6 gears, of course, like the counter case weapons, but the new one that's added recently for the C server is definitely the one that you can buy from the PvP shop. It's the Courage gears. Now, the Courage gear is in a very weird spot right now. For the option 1, you can change into 3 different things. You can make it do extra damage against the counters, or you can do extra damage against the soldier units, or you can able to do extra damage against the mechanics. Now, these 3 options are definitely not bad, but compared with the Maze Crown, it's definitely a little bit less. It really is, because you can only use it in the 1 types of enemies. Maze Crown will able to do extra damage to all ground units, probably way more universal gear that you want to roll for. When it comes to this gear is 100% for the Danger Close content. So for example, I talked about within the stream, if you roll for this and let's say if you get the anti-defender set, and you happen to have a Sobin with the anti-defender set with her counter case weapons, and so you are already doing extra damage to defender units like the moderator type 8. For mechanic damage with the option 1, you are able to do extra damage against the mechanics, and then you add on extra like crit damage or whatever you want to add on to be able to do a huge amount of damage against the moderator type A. But when it comes to rolling for set binary on this gears, even myself, I'd rather buy other stuff from the challenge dungeons and roll for set binary on those gears instead of this gear. This gear, if you don't get the nice options within the first time you purchased it, I think it's something that you definitely want to keep it inside and just forget about it. If I had an attack speed set for courage gear, I'll definitely slap like this on the Sobin, and Sobin is able to have a full attack speed set while doing extra damage against the mechanic. Then it should be a pretty good option for me to have for against some bosses within danger. It's not definitely universal gear, and the amount of set binary you invest into, if it is too high, it's definitely not going to be something that gives a huge return. Like I said, it's very hard to utilize, especially within PvP, and whereas a mage gear is definitely used both in PvP and PvE in anyway. This is limited for only certain contents for PvE, so just always remember that. And so this is basically not something that you want to roll your set binary onto. It's something that you want to keep and just put it on the side, and maybe in the future you want to spend it on and different gears on it. Now, the last gear we are going to be talking about some of the counter case gears that I definitely think it is worth your set binary. Definitely more than those courage gear I talked about just now. It's definitely above that, but I think this is probably kind of your second choice that you want to go for if you finish the decent amount of maze sets and you finish the decent amount of Hummingbird or Crown setup with your set binary. If you finish those, then you probably want to consider rolling for these gears. Now the first gear I can definitely talk about, just because I see it first, is definitely Kyle's gears. Kyle's gears with the attack speed set is not bad, but when you have a cooldown set, you can get a huge amount of cooldown charged up with Kyle. So Kyle should be able to get up to 83% cooldown ratio, which is pretty crazy. So Kyle's counter case gear is definitely something that you want to put a set binary on, and I think you will definitely enjoy using this gear with the Kyle. I think it's a little bit out of meta within Korean server. Not a lot of people use it both in PvP and PvE, but within C server with the Shadow Hole coming out, Kyle with skill cooldown sets will definitely be a carry units for a lot of PvP contents that you are going to be facing within C server. But I think definitely the first one that you want to go for when it comes to counter case gear for counter units is definitely the Gaeun's gears. Gaeun's counter case gear is insane. It gives a decent amount of attack, base attack, and giving 10% attack speed and able to roll with anti-ground damage. Attack speed definitely is a huge beneficial for her to trigger her passive attack, the enhanced attack, which reduce the cooldown for your other skills as well. So the Gaeun's counter case weapon is definitely almost close as a maze gear to roll, because Gaeun, like I said, is definitely one of those characters who can use both PvP and PvE and able to do so much different things with it. There's a lot of argument between which set is better. They say attack speed is better, they say cooldown set is better. For the PvP currently, I would definitely say cooldown set is better, because with the environmental buff they have, the global attack speed buff you get, definitely going to be more beneficial to have a cooldown set, because I think you're already getting enough attack speed out of it. And in general uses, cooldown is definitely a better, because her ultimate is definitely hitting a lot of range and able to hit a backline of the unit as well. So cooldowns triggering her ultimate skill fast as possible, like getting 72% cooldown ratio, will able to give her the edge to hunt down the enemy faster with her ultimate skill. Now, when it comes to PvE, you can definitely still be able to use a cooldown set, but generally within Korean server and a lot of testing was done, and they say for the end game gear usage, attack speed setup is definitely a little bit better than the cooldown set. And I still think Gaeun is definitely one of the best characters within this game when it comes to rangers. She is 3 cost, she has pretty decent damage, and she's able to stun enemies, which is pretty good, and she has very long range and pretty short cooldown time as well. So everything considered, Gaeun's counter case weapon is definitely the tier 1 counter case weapon that you can go for when it comes to counter units. Now another gear I can definitely say pretty good is Sylvia's gear. Sylvia's gear is definitely really good options because like I said, it kind of works like a Kyle's gear, but instead of attack speed it gets additional attack onto sub equipment slots, so pretty decent, and able to roll both cooldown skill haste option for both lines. So she's able to gonna get 83% cooldown ratio with this setup, and that is pretty huge deals, and she should be able to do a lot of stunning with her special attack. And Sylvia with the full cooldown set, like I said, 83% cooldown, she's gonna be able to spam her skills so fast and stun enemies a lot to give you more time to survive and heal your units with your supporter units. So trust me, if you get a cooldown set on with the Sylvia's gears, definitely a better good option that's gonna be worth for a long time. And another gear that we can talk about for the counter case that's kind of worth your set buying, definitely Sobin. Sobin is very good DPS units. If you get attack speed with her counter case gear, if you slash a maze gear with the attack speed set, she is going to be doing a lot of DPS, and even without those gears, just slap any attack speed gears and you should see her DPS go skyrocketing and just insane. Now, if you roll for this gear and you don't get attack speed but you get the, let's say, anti-defender there, definitely pretty good options to have, especially for the danger close. So then I will stop there. It's definitely a less universal thing, but if you have an anti-defender set, I think that's something you can kind of stop and just be satisfied with it. And because like I said, you definitely want to roll for maze gears or crown like those defensive gears first, then you want to kind of move on. And definitely Sobin is only for PvE usage, so when it's considered that, you definitely want to spend on, like I said, characters like Gaeun or even Kyle. Those gears definitely going to be better choice that works your set binder for a long time. But that is pretty much it when it comes to counter case gear. Like a Pendragon's gear is definitely not a bad option either, but I think you definitely want to roll for those maze gears and everything like a first, and then you want to consider reaching out for other counter case gears if you have everything finished. But other gears, I don't think really that worthwhile. And then lastly, Xiao's gear is definitely worthwhile to roll as well because it's an insane gear to have. It gives so much attack speed for her, basically giving her whole attack speed slapped onto her. So she gets huge amount of attack speed, and if you get a crit damage set, you can potentially be doing like 50k damage per hit or even higher, depending on the buff you get and such. And you are able to do a lot of damage with her and becoming the #1 DPS units. Very good gear to roll for after you roll a lot of gears. The only thing is that shouting is not really usable with the PvP right now. Things could change with this reloaded class change system kind of coming in near future for the Korean server. So when that comes out, maybe this shouting could be used again within PvP. Then we'll talk about the different things you can have for her. But as of right now, she's definitely only for PvE usage, even though she's very good PvE carrier, because Shadow Hall, there you're gonna need some snipers to do a lot of damage on a single target, and shouting is there to carry your game. I think those are the characters that you probably want to roll for, so we'll go and summarize all of it. Definitely the maze gears is definitely something that you want to spend your set barring on first, and set options we talked about like attack speed, cooldown, and maybe crit damage if you want to use just shouting. Definitely the second tier option is you want to use for is Cordias gears or the Hummingbird series. They're definitely a very good option to have defensive options on them, and they're definitely worthwhile for tier 1 options. Now if you get like a cooldown set with those, definitely worthwhile keeping. You probably want, if you get cooldown option for Cordias gears, then you probably want to keep those gears and move on to second Cordias gears or Hummingbird one, then kind of try to roll with different setup. Definitely worthwhile. And the third gear we talked about is definitely some of the counter case gears. Have Kyle, Kim Sobin, Shouting, and Gaeun. Definitely worthwhile counter case weapons and gears to roll and spend your set binaries on. And the last gear we talked about is a courage gear, which is something you're probably not going to use much. So if you this kind of gear, you definitely don't want to spend your set binary on unless you're mega whales and you have every single gear, and you maybe want to use it with some of the danger close bosses. In that case, yes, it's definitely worth it, but other than that, probably not really worth your set binary for most of players out there. I hope this video will make it clear for you guys, and I think I did pretty much the best I can for the counter case gears out there right now. And I think these videos should give you very good idea of what you want to roll for set binary with those counter gears out there. Now, you'll talk about soldier gears and mechanic gears next, but I think realistically you're going to use the counter gears the most. And once you roll this counter gears first, you're probably not going to have a lot of set binary setting up for where you are at for C server, because C server is only a couple months old, so it's not even 3 months old. Is it 3 months old, something like that? So if you consider that, soldier gears and the mechanic gears are very far stretch for you right now. I think this is time right now. You definitely want to focus more within counter gears. But the soldier video next and the mechanic gear definitely next, and we'll talk about other things in the future as well. So thanks all for watching, guys, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. And next time, I'll see you guys next time with more videos. And as always, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys' support, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.